New Chaos models for Age of Sigmar are finally here.
Spiky bits.
Welcome back, Hobby Maniacs. I'm Baer from SpikyBits.com, and we are taking a look at the new Slaves to Darkness, aka the Hordes of Chaos, for Age of Sigmar. If you played Warhammer Fantasy, and you probably remember, it's the Hordes of Chaos, and yes, there's all sorts of different flavors of Chaos now. You got Bloodbound, and you got the Beast of Chaos, and all that stuff out there. But, you know, if you were around before the 5 year ago or so reboot of Age of Sigmar, then you definitely remember these guys a little bit differently, I feel like. So the new Start Collecting boxes, we'll talk about the path to market here in a second. It's $95 US. You get some endless spells for $35. I think there's War Scroll cards as well, which look pretty dope. Following the same path to market, you know, the double up cards and everything. No need to really show you any of that stuff there because we've seen it a million times. But what makes this release interesting is the way they're doing a Start Collecting box, which is kind of like half of a starter set, but not really. So we're gonna definitely dig in on that one because I'm very, very curious about what that is right there. Now you can always get your Warhammer for less from Miniature Market or of course DiceHeadGames.com. They've always got some discounts on that stuff, so make sure you check out those folks because they pretty much have everything in stock just about every day out there. So let's jump over and take a look at the new Start Collecting box and talk a little bit more about that because it's a very curious offering. So this Start Collecting set, like I said, it's very interesting route to market because it's the first time we've seen all new models come in a Start Collecting, whereas in the past with things like the first Age of Sigmar starter in 2015, we saw the Sigmar and we saw the Khorne Bloodbound, which I don't know if they were called, I think they were just called Chaos at the time, I forget, come together in a starter set and then get offered in a smaller offering and then get offered in the Start Collecting boxes, which they currently come in now. So it's almost like we're going in reverse order here, which is really interesting to see from Games Workshop. So anytime that they do something different, it could mark a paradigm shift in the way the route to markets and kind of how they're producing and getting everything out the door, so to speak. It's interesting to see, and when something like this happens, I love talking about it because it's very different. We know they're on the cusp of scaling up their business, changing. They're bringing up production facilities. There's rumors that they bought a bunch of robots and things out there. So this is interesting to see it come out like this because we haven't seen new models be released in this format first in a long time. We used to see them come out in army boxes, which we just saw the sisters come out in their own army box, but before that we hadn't seen something like that in a good 10 years or so. So there's something going on, good or bad, I suppose. But now we're going to dig in and take a look and see if this particular set right here is worth your hobby dollars, or maybe you want to wait for, maybe there's a starter set coming out. Maybe there'll be something else opposed to these guys. It's really hard to say. So there's 16 models in here, which kind of goes along with the split in half that, you know, with the Age of Sigmar starter from 2015. There was about 30-ish models in there. Now the Soul Wars box that came out in 2018, that actually has a lot more models in it, but it's 160 bucks, so it wasn't quite as much as the starter for regular Age of Sigmar back in 2015, which I believe was $100, but I might be wrong. I'll have to look that back up. So 16 models come in here, all brand new, and a couple of them have different options, like with the Knights, and you can have a guy with a flail right there. So let's take a closer look at the models themselves. Digging into the box, you're going to get the instruction manual, of course, a couple of sprues of different things. So one sprue of Chaos Knights, one sprue of this dude on Lizard Man, we'll call him Lizard Man, one sprue of Chaos Warriors, and then the rest of the sprue of the Chaos Knights. So the Chaos Knights is 3, so it's actually like 6 sprues. You're also going to get the bases, which come with this little hex insert for, I imagine, their feet, and a larger 90 mil base, it looks like, for the leader guy, I'm sure. And the 32 mil bases also come with little hex base so these guys can slot into it. If you haven't figured out by now, by seeing these sprues, this not only is easy to build, or ETB, but it's also push fit. So let's take a look at some of the instructions here before we jump into the models themselves. So here is the Chaos Lord on Carcharodon, or whatever you want to call it. This guy, now this is interesting. From what I'm looking at right here, this is completely push fit. You see all these tabs and everything? Don't click these off. There's like some hidden tabs right here too, it looks like. And it just appears everything just kind of pushes together with these tabs and then slots and the holes. And then you have a head choice right here. No weapon choice. And then it just slots into the basing, little cliff thing, and then into the base right there, which is
fairly straightforward. It looks about as simple as an Underworlds model. And then here's the first Chaos Knight, which looks like he has an option to either be the dude with the flail. Yeah, here's the dude with the flail, which just right and left half. And I kind of like this design because back in the day, you used to have to kind of glue them together and put like the little towels on them. And they weren't as dynamic and they didn't look as cool. But these being push fit, you know, I don't want to jump to conclusions. Maybe it's a nightmare. But it looks very, very much dynamic, even though it's push fit. Very similar to what happened with the Sisters models. They seemed simplistic, but once we got them together, they were deceptively kind of dynamic, I think. And then all the different Chaos Knight poses there. Here's the Chaos Warrior poses, it looks like. Well, actually, a bunch of them. So Chaos Warriors, this is the Aspiring Champion, so we'll probably put that guy together. And he looks deceptively simple, like a left slice, or back slice, a leg slice, and then a head, a shield, which now that I'm looking at it, that doesn't even make sense. Why is that part 88 and everything else is part 50? I don't know. And the head right there in the front half. So that seems deceptively simple once you start looking at it. And then the rest of his kinsman right there. And paint. Okay, well, let's take a look at sprues. So here's the first sprue for the Chaos Knight. Let's get some light on this pretty good, I think. So like I said, it's all ETB. So this side, you can't tell that it's ETB. You can just see a lot of details and stuff. And the details look great. Lots of good chainmail, lots of crazy heads here, lots of trim, plenty of spiky bits everywhere. And then when you flip it over, conveniently all the socket pieces and everything like that are on this underside. So that's kind of interesting. How they kind of did that. Now I'm looking at this, and this is part 52, which is a shield, which I swear I just looked at this instruction. Yeah, I just looked at this, so that's interesting. Okay, so according to this, which I just showed you, this is part 51, but I'm pretty sure that's part 52. So that's part 52, and that cape is supposedly 52, but that's definitely not right. That cape is not 52. I wonder where the 52 cape is. Or 51. I imagine it's 51. I imagine they just screwed that up. So anyways, keep an eye on your part numbers there. If it doesn't make sense, definitely look at the parts and kind of keep all that together. Now looking at some of these slices, this is a very dynamic slice, like going right down into the reins themselves. Or not the reins where they put their feet, I forget what that's called. But you get what I'm saying. And then, wow, there's a bunch of those. So that looks like the standard for that. Okay. Very interesting. And let's switch to the other sprue of all these guys here. So lots more where that came from. All of this side, for the most part, you can't tell it's sockets, but then once you turn it over, there's definitely a lot of sockets there. You can't see some of it right here, but again, the detail looks great. I mean, the shields look dope. Plenty of good chainmail, trim. The heads, I'm sure there's a couple different head swaps, which we'll find out in a second. There is piece 51. That's the cape. So the cape is 51, the shield is 52. So just mental note of that if you're going through. Be very, very careful right there. So other than that and the weird slicing of this, I like the detail work, but I'm kind of concerned about the mess ups with the numbers there and a little bit on the slicing. So there's the Knights, and then we'll take a look at the Chaos Warriors. And again, there's the socket side, there's the normal side. And once we start kind of getting in there looking at it, the shields look exquisite, and they got this like rounded lip to them, which we hadn't seen before. Remember, the old Chaos Warrior shields are just basically like a little straight convex thing. But the legs, however, some of them are split down the middle, but they got lots of good trim. Like look at the fur, look at the armor trim, look at the cape work here. Like all of this is very, very good looking. Like I can't even. I'm definitely not mad about anything like that. I'm trying to get the light a little bit better so we can kind of see. But I'm definitely not mad about that. I think it's a very good detailing right there. And then you start looking over here. So deceptively dynamic again, but look at these slices. Like this is very ambitious. Like my biggest question, my alarm bells are going off in my head. It's like, why are we making this push fit? Or ETB push fit when there's so many weird looking slices here. So I haven't put them together yet, but I'm definitely questioning a lot of things right here that I'm going to keep an eye out for when I start assembling it, because this seems a little weird. And let's look at the last sprue, which looks at cursory look. Now here's a gotcha. I can already tell this. Look at these little axles. Like the lizard basically has axles those are part, like I just showed you that's part of the kit. So those are part of the push fit pieces that go together with the side here. So don't clip those off. Be very, very careful. Like, those are your clip points right there. Do not clip this off or you will be in a world of trouble, I'm sure. I think that's how it's going to go, but we'll see here in a second. And then the head, and then you can see the same kind of axle. There's stems right there that form part of the head. I guess that goes inside. That's the tongue, and then it goes inside the head, kind of like I showed you. The arms look pretty straightforward, but this looks to be problematic for sure. These stegodon, archaeodon kind of spikes down the back. I could see that being a little ambitious as well. Two different head swaps right there that you can see, this more possessed one and one with a whole bunch of horns right there. So overall, I think the detail, again, is great. There's that one rumor engine with the dead Stormcast head. Again, detail's great, but I'm a little concerned about the assembly and the slicing of these parts. So let's take a minute, well, more than a minute, and get them together and take a look. Well, we got a lot to talk about, folks. So the models are very dynamic, very, very cool looking. You can see here, G-Dub does this magic slices where the gaps and everything are cleverly hidden, although you're probably going to want to use a little bit of that super thin super glue to get these guys together. But let me warn you, I didn't use super glue. I didn't use any glue for any of these models I'm about to show you. I actually put them all together, completely push fit, and just pushing them together was a nightmare. I won't lie. It took way too long. I got cat hair on them already, of course. I feel like, in my opinion, it took way too long. The assembly was a little complicated. Like, for instance, on this one, when you put this together, they want you to hold, what is it? They want you to hold this head and the arm piece right here and something else. They basically want you to have 3 hands. So you're supposed to hold that and then push this back cape together, and it all holds it together. And then you just push on the shield right here, which, by the way, I love these shields. This shield was also labeled wrong. It is not part 88, by the way. So the shield is great looking, very, very cool. Lots of spiky bits on it. Now, here's another thing for you. When you're holding all these things and you're trying to get them assembled together, and let me just hold this down here because I'm getting way too close. My hands are like super, super hot. So let's just zoom in instead of being so close to the lights. We can't fly too close to the sun right there. These models, when you're pushing all this stuff together, you are going to smash your fingers on all of these spiky bits right here, which look great. And don't get me wrong, like, the styling of these models is incredible. I mean, look at the posing on this. The dude's literally looking down at his mace, calling somebody out as the aspiring champion, about to shield bash him with this, like, devious looking thing over here. Incredible posing. Everything looks good here, except for the tips of your fingers are going to get smashed because you're literally trying to squeeze these together. In a lot of cases, you have to hold it in 3 different places, and then if you're going to put glue on it, it's going to be very challenging to not get glue, not only all over your hands, but also all over the models. And I mean, I'm sure people have done it and haven't had any problems with it, but I just found it very, very difficult at best for somebody that's been doing this for a long time. This guy took probably about 15 minutes to kind of piece together once we cleaned up the appropriate parts. Again, there's things that they want you to kind of, like this assembly up here to kind of push the cape together. You got to kind of have 3 hands, or, you know, just kind of like hold a lot of pieces right here. But the end result is pretty good looking, and you can see where I didn't quite squeeze it all together. Again, my fingers are getting a little sensitive from pushing and pulling and squeezing up. Well, there it goes. So now you can kind of see what I was talking about. So this area back here, you're supposed to kind of hold all this together and then squeeze all that in. And I mean, it got it done, but I would think, and this is just me spitballing in purely my opinion here, if you're going to do something ETB push fit, you would want to do it for beginners. But I feel like these assemblies and the skills you need to get all this together, and I haven't even used glue here, are not for beginners. So I'm not, obviously the Age of Sigmar stuff, Slaves of Darkness, is for veteran players, right? Maybe this is going to be one half of a starter set. I don't know yet, but I just feel like the assembly was a little bit harder than probably it should be. But again, the styling is great. Look at this guy. And this is actually the head for the Chaos Knight, which you can just swap out the arm here. So he's a little bit more static, but the head that's supposed to go with this flail actually is looking down the flail. So all this is very, very good looking. And then they slot into here and you got a little piece that'll cover up this hole right here. I didn't grab it because I was kind of like whatever at that point. But everything else pretty much went together okay on this guy. It's just kind of a little bit more work than I feel like it was worth for being push fit. And that's just my personal opinion. Now, I will tell you this. This guy, this Lord guy, looks dope. Everything about this dude is sick. The posing of it, the trim, the cape, the chainmail, all the little spiky bits, the wannabe like dinosaur kind of Stegodon, Archaeodon, whichever one it was, kind of feel to the model itself, but not quite. It's a little different on the head, but he's got kind of the very similar tail. I don't remember which one it was because I'm not a dinosaurologist, but it looks dope. Like it's got that pop culture kind of feel to our life, and that's what the appeal about Games Workshop stuff is so much. But as I'm talking here, you've already seen the issue with this model. This top, I literally spent 30 minutes wrestling with this model. Now, maybe I'm a stupid, but I just wanted to record the video at that point. So I cannot for the life of me get this to fit right. Now, maybe there's just a little stud in there somewhere that I just didn't trim. But again, these models have proven to be way more complicated of an assembly build than just your normal multi-part, just kind of slap some glue on it, get it together, follow the instructions. They're very dynamic and they're very well designed. As far as, you know, hey, this guy's looking down his sword barrel. He's also got an axe. Look at this. This is dope. This is like a dinosaur, but it's chaos, but it's not. But I don't know what it is, but I love it. That part is dope, but having to have 3 hands and for every one of these models, and then not even being able to get this together right here is, again, it might be me. Maybe I'm just having an off day, but I feel like this is way more frustrating than it should have been. So that's my hot take on it. I think the models are gorgeous. I don't know if they're going to come out with multi-part kits. I would love to see them come out with multi-part kits, but just these models right here are very, very cool looking. But do not think for a second that because it's ETB and because it's push fit, it's going to be any easier, air quotes, to put together than something you've worked with in the past. Now, as far as sizing goes, well, that should give you probably an idea right there with the Revenant about exactly how big they are. And then here's the Chaos Warrior. Now, I don't have the old Chaos Warriors, but I can tell you they are roughly a little bit wider stance-wise. They're way more dynamic. They're not static or anything like that. The Chaos Knights, too, are way more static and I think a little bit beefier, to be quite honest with you. I don't feel like the old plastic Chaos Knights. And I think the Chaos Knights came out in 2005, whereas the Chaos Warriors came out in 2000, we'll go with 2002. I might be off plus or minus a year right there. But that's about it for this one. I think it's a very ambitious release on Games Workshop's part. I won't lie. I like what they're doing. I like the different path to market, but I'm a little concerned with the difficulty. And again, maybe I'm having an off day, but they were a little bit more difficult than I would have imagined they would have been to assemble. So that's it for this one. Pick yours up this weekend from Miniature Market or Dice Head Games, or of course your local game store, anywhere fine Games Workshop products are sold. And make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you can be the very first to like and comment on all our videos.